What's going on, family? Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs Series. Let's continue with 100 years of World Championship fight. Who you're looking at is Zulu Kid. He was a middleweight. You'll learn more about Zulu Kid as we talk about Harry Greb. We get into that era because Harry Greb fought Zulu Kid several times. Zulu Kid was a middleweight, very good fighter. He was in there with so many fighters during his era. So let's get started. February 17th, 1922, World Welterweight Champion, Clinton, New Jersey. Jack Britton. He fought a fighter by the name of Dave Shade. Dave Shade was from California. 15 rounds in New York, Madison Square Garden. Jack Britton prepared for this fight at the famous Lou Stillman's gym, located on 919 8th Avenue. Now, Lou Stillman was the owner of that gym. Never fought a day in his life. Didn't know anything about boxing. But a depression hit, and he found himself in Stillman's gym. And the gym was named after him because the mob had owned the gym and they needed someone to run the gym. And Lou Stillman fit that description. He was a very rugged man. He used to carry a 45 on his left side. He sat on a stool as soon as you walked in the gym, and he had a microphone. And he would be criticizing all the fighters. Tell them to go home, you bum, find a different line of work. But when he liked you, he respected you. You had two rings in Stillman's gym right next to each other. Ring number one is where you had all the professionals and you had all the champions. They would spar. He would call out the name of the fighters who were getting ready to spar, because in the front row you had a line of chairs where you had the press, and the press would go and examine all of the fighters. Fighters who came out of town would stop at Stillman's gym, because Madison Square Garden was not too far from where Stillman's gym was. So Dave Shade, who was Dave Shade? Dave Shade's name was Dave Charles. He was born March 1st, 1902 in California. He died June 23rd, 1983 in California. I met Dave Shade. He stood 5 foot 8 inches. He was a welterweight, and he had a 71-inch reach. He fought from 1918 to 1935. He had a total bout career of 225 fights, 132 wins, 28 losses, and 17 by the knockout route. He was in the ring with Jack Hood, Ben Jedby. For Jim Jedby, 1 win, 1 draw. Ben Jedby would become a middleweight champion. He was in the ring with Al Gaynor. He defeated him. Al Gaynor was a colored heavyweight champion. Al Gaynor was a very good fighter. And that was a good win for Dave Shade. He was in the ring with Len Harvey. Len Harvey was a British middleweight champion. And that was a good win, but he also lost to Len Harvey. He was in the ring with Kid Carroll. Had a draw with him. He fought Mickey Walker and Rene DeVois. But his biggest win was when he knocked out Jimmy Slattery. And Jimmy Slattery was a very good fighter from Buffalo, New York. He wound up becoming a light heavyweight champion. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at that fight between Dave Shade and Jimmy Slattery. All right, let's take a look at one of the scrapbooks here. Now, Dave Shade knocked out Jimmy Slattery. Now, also, we had Harry Greb, who outpointed Mickey Walker. And Harry Wells, he defeats a fighter by the name of Charlie Wiener. This was a hospital bout. It was basically a charity event for kids who had mental health. I'm trying to get a good article here for you to look at. Well, so they were able to earn $339,040. Pretty good. Well, you can see here, Harry Wells, with a weight advantage of some 30 pounds, as they say, pushed over Charlie Wiener, so-called Newark Adonis. And Harry Greb making a middleweight limit of 160 pounds. The Pittsburgh Windmill, waiting at 2 o'clock that afternoon for Mickey Walker, Elizabeth, New Jersey. With Dave Shade. Says they had around 40,000 spectators. Some saying suspects, spectators in the arena there. But anyway, Jimmy Slattery was knocked out by Dave Shade, and that was a very, very impressive victory for Dave Shade, but that was also a hell of a fight. It really was. And Dave Shade was in the ring with Mickey Walker and many others. But it was a pretty decent fight. It was Dave Shade. And I just wanted to show you quickly an article. Let me just browse down a little bit more. Just tells you about the whole hospital event. And after the fight with Mickey Walker and Harry Greb, they went to a bar and they sat down and they were having a drink. And Mickey Walker kept heckling Harry Greb about the fight. He felt he won the fight. So it got to a point where Harry Greb just said, if you want to satisfy your curiosity, you and I can go outside. Mickey Walker said, let's have it. They went outside. As Harry Greb was taking off his jacket, his arm got caught in the sleeve, and Mickey Walker just dropped him, got him on the ground while his face was towards the dirt, and he kept banging him in the back of the head until they broke that fight up. All right, so that's the story of Dave Shade and Jimmy Slattery. I'll just give you a little bit of a visual here. Here's Harry Wills and Wiener. As you can see here, Dave Shade and Jimmy Slattery. Like I said, it was a hospital bout. It was to fund the hospital because they were having some financial problems. But it was still count on the records of these fighters, so they were willing to do it. Fight took place at the Polo Grounds. All right, let's take a look at some more fights. All right, so the next fight was March 13th, 1922. Pittsburgh Windmill, Harry Greb defeats Tommy Gibbons in 15 rounds, New York's Madison Square Garden. It was a hospital charity event. All right, so I just pulled out the Harry Greb scrapbook. This is 1,000 pages of Harry Greb, 2,000 front and back. Articles of information of Harry Greb. Basically everything you want to know about Greb. And it says here he beats Gibbons in a bout for charity. Pittsburgh Tornado, all points. Tommy Gibbons, 15 rounds. But when it seems too light to tackle Jack Dempsey. Harry Greb was trying to get a fight with Jack Dempsey. See, Harry Greb was originally a light heavyweight before he moved out to the middleweight division, as was Jake LaMotta. Jake LaMotta was originally a light heavyweight, fought in 1939 New Jersey Diamond Gloves as a light heavyweight. Then he would move down to the middleweight division as he turned professional. And Harry Greb did the same exact thing. Greb defeats Gibbons. Here you have Grebs and Tommy Gibbons. And they fought for this charity event. And Grebs handled him very easily. It was no problem. And Tommy Gibbons would get a shot at Jack Dempsey's heavyweight championship belt. But Harry Greb never got a shot at Jack Dempsey. Neither did Sam Langford or Harry Wills. They all pressed him for an opportunity at his title. As a matter of fact, Kid Norfolk had challenged Jack Dempsey in 1918. And that challenge was ignored. Okay. So now Tuesday, May 23rd, 1922, 24-year-old Gene Tunney lost his America's Light Heavyweight Championship crown. 27-year-old Harry Greb. It was 15 rounds, New York's Madison Square Garden. It would be Tunney's only defeat, and the referee was Kid McFarland. Now, Greb was 27 years old. He stood 5 foot 8 inches, and he had a 71-inch reach. He had a fighting record of 194 wins, 11 losses, 16 draws, and 33 knockouts at the time of that fight. He was in the ring with Tommy Gibbons, who he defeated. I just showed you that. March 13th, 1922. He fought Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith was called the Bayonne Globetrotter. And he fought him February 20th, 1922. Tunney was 24 years old. He didn't have any losses. He had 2 draws, 33 knockouts. He stood 6 foot, and he had a 76-inch reach. He was in the ring with Battling Levinsky. As a matter of fact, that's who he took his America's Light Heavyweight Championship belt from. Fought him January 13th, 1922. He was also in the ring with Fade Kaiser. Defeated him. I talked about Fade Kaiser. He was part of the AEF, America's Expeditionary Forces. He was on that same team. But he actually fought against the team, I should say, of U.S. He fought against Bob Martin. And Bob Martin defeated him. Gene Tunney was on that team as a light heavyweight. He fought Fade Kaiser March 3rd, 1922. Now, between the first and second rounds, Greb had busted the cut open over his eye of Gene Tunney. And it was beyond repair. Busted his nose, his eye, his upper lip. It was a bloody mess. And Greb just swarmed him. Tunney could do nothing to Harry Greb in that particular evening. These men would fight each other 5 times. And Greb had won 1. Tunney had won 1. And the rest of them were no decisions because Tunney would get the victory. He was already the champion, America's light heavyweight champion. But there were no decisions. So he technically defeated Greb once. But I felt that Greb had defeated Tunney 3 out of the 5 times that they fought. It was very controversial. I'll show you a few more of their fights in one moment. But George Carpentier was offered $150,000 by promoter Tex Rickard to defend his World Light Heavyweight Championship belt from Harry Greb. And George Carpentier refused. See, everyone was ducking Harry Greb, although he had a lot of fights. But they didn't really want to fight Harry Greb because Harry Greb had a style that was very awkward. But he was a swarmer. Never stopped throwing punches. He was a very hard puncher. And the only one who really wanted to smoke with Harry Greb was the Boston Bone Crusher, Sam Lakeford. They had one fight, soft record, somewhat of an underground fight, and it's just known as being a no-decision fight. So let's take a look at Harry Greb and Gene Tunney. Then you have Tony's only defeat was to Harry Greb's. And that was Greb's greatest victory. This is in a Harry Greb scrapbook. 1,000 pages of Harry Greb, front and back 2,000. As you can see here, he broke the light heavyweight champion's nose in the very first round, cut Gene's face up into ribbons, and gave Tunney the worst licking of his life. May 24th, 1922. They actually fought on the 23rd. This is when this article was actually written. You see here, Tunney, only fight that Tunney had ever lost was to Harry Greb. This is an amazing fight, I'll tell you. See, Tunney looking on as Greb is on the scales. Tunney Greb Tommy Loughran and Roland Todd was also on that card. The bout was at Madison Square Garden. I tell you, they used to have some great cards at the Garden. Harry Greb outpoints Gene Tunney for the light heavyweight championship. It was the America's light heavyweight championship belt that he took from Tunney. Hats off to the new light heavyweight champion of America, Mr. Harry Greb, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They called him the Human Windmill. And what I'm doing is just basically letting you read this for yourself. As you can see, he was in the ring with Tommy Gibbons. I showed you that. Both men were in the ring with Tommy Gibbons. Now, they say Tunney weighed, as announced, 174.5 pounds. And I lost my train of thought here for a second. Tunney weighed 174.5 pounds, and Greb weighed 162.25 pounds. Tunney was from Greenwich Village. That's on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And it's funny because he died in Greenwich Village, which is upstate New York. But that was some fight between Harry Greb and Gene Tunney. And that fight took place May 23rd, 1922. Now, the next fight I want to talk about happened June 26, 1922. It was the world welterweight champion Jack Britton. And he was in his welterweight title defense against Benny Leonard. And Leonard was leading on all cards. He outboxed Jack Britton. In the 8th round, he would drop Jack Britton. Something came over him, I don't know what did, but he went over and hit him while he was down. And Jack Britton was out on his feet when Benny Leonard had tagged him. And he was on one knee, and the count was 8. Didn't look like he was going to get up. Benny Leonard just went over and hit him while he was down. And they disqualified him. So it wasn't as though Jack Britton was down when he got hit, and then Benny Leonard followed up with another punch, didn't realize his knee was on the canvas. He was down for the count of 8. And he was disqualified, was Leonard. Had that not happened, Benny Leonard would have been the welterweight champion of the world. He had 18,000 spectators. Couldn't believe what they were witnessing. It was at the New York Velodrome. And both Leonard and Britton had trained at Lou Stillman's gym to prepare for this fight. It was an incredible match between these two men. Just unfortunate Benny Leonard didn't get the opportunity to become the welterweight champion of the world because he took himself out of that chance when he tagged the man while he was on the ground. And he was rightfully disqualified for that match. Now, July 27th, 1922, world lightweight champion Benny Leonard was rocked in the 8th round, but he would get himself together and defeat Philadelphia southpaw Lou Tendler in the 12th round. It was in defense of his lightweight championship belt. It was at New Jersey Boyle's 30 Acres. I showed you that particular fight in a Benny Leonard scrapbook. Take a look at the following video. Now, Nat Flasher had created the Ring magazine. And the very first Ring magazine was inspiring to all. So Lou Tendler, I don't have his picture at the moment, but I'm just going to go through his profile real quickly with you because he was in the ring with Benny Leonard and Lou Tendler gave him a scare. I did show you some visuals in the Benny Leonard scrapbook. But Lou Tendler was born September 28, 1898 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He died November 15, 1970. He was 72 years of age at the time of his death. He would reside in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He stood 5'6". He had a 70-inch reach. He was a southpaw, and he was a lightweight. He lost twice to Nebraskan Wildcat, Ace Hutkins. Ace Hutkins was another good fighter. He was in the ring with Benny Leonard, among others. April 12th, 1927 to January 20th, 1928. Those are the 2 times he fought. Ed Hutkins, June 2nd, 1924, he lost to the Toy Bulldog Mickey Walker. And he defeated junior welterweight champion Pinky Mitchell, February 18th, 1924. So that was the career of Lou Tender. Very good southpaw from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So July 4th, Benny Leonard knocks out Rocky Kansas, 8 rounds in Michigan City. He retained his lightweight championship belt. I showed you the visual of that. July 6th, Johnny Dundee defeats Jack Sharkey. His name was Young Jack Sharkey. He was from the Lower East Side. Very good fighter was Young Jack Sharkey. Defeated him in 15 rounds in Brooklyn, New York to retain his lightweight championship belt. His junior lightweight championship belt. July 10th, Joe Lynch knocks out Johnny Buff. 14 rounds in the Bronx to regain his bantamweight championship belt. I showed you the visual of that fight as well with Johnny Buff and Johnny Lynch as well. Joe Lynch. Now, Johnny Dundee defeats Vincent Pepper Martin August 28th, 1922. 15 rounds in New York's Madison Square Garden. He defended his junior lightweight championship belt. As you can see here, this is the Johnny Dundee scrapbook once again. And this is Vincent, Pepper Martin. And it happened August 28th, 22. And he would defeat him. Pepper Martin was a pretty good fighter. I'll show you Vincent Pepper Martin. As you can see here, Vincent Pepper Martin had died. He was a colorful Brooklyn boxer, succumbs to pneumonia following his bout with Ballerino, 130-pound title. Now, the thing is, Vince Pepper Martin was from Brooklyn, but he had pneumonia for almost 6 months, and a lot of people don't last that long, and he was walking around with that. And he had two or three fights when he had pneumonia. But he passed away through the condition of pneumonia. But he did fight Johnny Dundee. He was a pretty good fighter, was Vincent Pepper Martin. Vincent Pepper Martin. Hard-hitting Brooklyn featherweight, 1929. Now, I wanted to show you Charlie Wiener. This is the man that Harry Wills would face in that hospital bout. And Charlie Wiener had actually defeated Ed Gunboat Smith. Excuse the blur here. He outpointed Ed Gunboat Smith and became the claimant of the championship. But he was knocked out cold by Harry Wills, and Wills never got a shot. And this is the kind of stuff that was going on. I just wanted to show you that. Now, we talked about the fight with Johnny Dundee and Young Jack Sharkey. And I just wanted to show you this. Johnny Dundee puts the curtains on Young Jack Sharkey, knocks him out clean. One more finish in the 12th round, but Jersey City Batman earns a draw with trailing on points. All right, let's keep it moving. Now, September 14th, 1922, Pancho Villa stops Johnny Buff, and he wins the America's Flyweight Championship belt. Now, remember, Johnny Buff was the flyweight champion, and he would become the featherweight champion when he defeated Joe Lynch. So we're going through all the World Championship fights. And we're in the 1922s right now. So this is Pancho Villa and Johnny Buff. Flyweight championship belt. Changes hands to the Filipino boxer, Pancho Villa. Now we went through Pete Herman defeating Little Jimmy Wild. I'm showing you the visual of that fight. Once again, these are all World Championship fights that I'm showing you in this series. And we'll make it out of the 20s. We'll get into the 30s by next week, 1930s. There'll be a whole host of fights in the 1930s with Henry Armstrongs and Joe Louis, Jimmy McLaurin, and Barney Ross. Many, many championship fights. Let's see. The Conquer of Wild by Herman. New Orleans. Boy stops English champion in London. Pete Herman blocks Wild's right. They're just showing you some illustrations. Here. Pete floors Jimmy 3 times in the 7th round. All right, so we got that visual. I explained that fight in the previous videos. Pete Herman and Jimmy Wild. Now I wanted to show you young Jack Sharkey. I showed you when he fought Johnny Dundee. This is young Jack Sharkey. Excuse the blur. This is young Jack Sharkey from New York. He's from Brooklyn, New York. Very good bantamweight. And we talked about young Jack Sharkey, but I didn't show you his visual. So this is young Jack Sharkey. Excuse the blur. And of course, this is the great Johnny Dundee, Scotch Wop. Trains in Stillman's gym. Phenomenal fighter. He would wind up in East Orange, New Jersey. But he really was something else, Johnny Dundee. Had him ranked number 9 along with Benny Leonard and Tony Canzoneri. Where did we get to Tony Canzoneri's career? Amazing his career was in his championship fights. Once again, Johnny Dundee. 3-pound jewel belt. September 24th, 1922. Balansiki knocks out Georges Carpentier in the 6th round. Paris, France, to win the World Light Heavyweight Championship belt. Now, Balansiki has his own book as well. 1,000 pages, 2,000 front and back. A lot of stories on Balansiki and a lot of pictures as well. But this is Balansiki. He would eventually lose his light heavyweight championship belt to Mike McTeague. Dudley Ireland, St. Patrick's Day, we'll look at that as well. Here you have Georges Carpentier signing an autograph for a police officer in France. And here you have Balansiki having his issues with the police officer while he was in training for Georges Carpentier. November 1st, 1922, Mickey Walker captures the welterweight championship belt from veteran Jack Britton, 15 rounds. Elizabeth Ladd too strong for the 37-year-old Jack Britton. Mickey Walker becomes the brand new welterweight champion, New York's Madison Square Garden. Walker was from Elizabeth, New Jersey. Called him the Toy Bulldog. And after capturing this title, he would go on and have his wars with Pete Latzo. He would exchange the title back and forth. And we'll be talking about that fight as the series goes on. Here you have Mickey Walker. He has Jack Britton down. Mickey Walker was a young man at that time. Mickey Walker's to your left and Jack Britton is to your right. Pasty Haley is in the middle. He's the referee. Mickey Walker, new welterweight champion. Ex-champion Jack Britton, floored in the 10th round. Madison Square Garden. That's him floored in the 10th round. So Mickey Walker is the brand new welterweight champion of the world. November 1st, 1922. Now as I end this video of 1922, November 15th, the Boxing Blade had taken a poll and he recognized Pinky Mitchell as the first and brand new junior welterweight champion. That was an accomplishment.